Welcome, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark. Super excited to have back on the show Dr. Jemma Green. How's it going?
I'm very well, Crypto Lark. How are you?
Doing very good. Now, it's been about 2 years, I think, since we've spoken. I've talked in the meantime to Anya and to David from Power Ledger as well. So we've talked about Power Ledger a lot here on the channel. But for anybody who hasn't kept up to date and doesn't know much about Power Ledger, can you just give us that super quick like elevator pitch? What are you guys doing for anyone who doesn't know yet?
Absolutely. So in a sentence, we help people transact energy, trade environmental commodities, and invest in renewables.
The future of energy, renewables, very cool stuff. Now we're gonna be breaking down. Basically, you guys have had so many just partnerships and trials and all this kind of exciting stuff. So we're breaking all of that down. But just a quick note to everyone out there in the audience: always remember to do your own research before running out and grabbing any crypto tokens. And that this is not a sponsored interview. I've just been a Power Ledger fan for ages, so I'm happy to have you guys back on and talk about the future of renewable energy. So one of the things is, I want to start off with kind of a bit of a broader question before we dig into all these exciting partnerships that you have going on. So why is peer-to-peer energy trading the future of energy trading? Why is it so gosh darn important?
Well, in the past 15 years, households have begun to install rooftop solar. And to start off with, it was with subsidies from the government in the form of what's called feed-in tariffs. So you'd get a fixed amount of money for uploading your excess solar to the grid. And that's a kind of beginning of a market, but not a very sophisticated one. And now, more recently, people are putting batteries in, which means that they can dispatch into the market at any time of the day, including the peak. And so the price of that, or the value of that electricity, varies. And the peak pricing on the east coast of Australia can go up to $14.50 a kilowatt hour. And it does that quite a lot because the market at the moment is very volatile and there's not a lot of competition in the peak bit of the market. What Power Ledger's technology does is adds a level of sophistication so that households can dispatch into that peak market and be paid. So they're able to pay back their investment in solar and battery systems faster and be empowered and overall drive down electricity prices by adding more supply into the market.
I love the idea of individual homes becoming mini power factories. It's such a brilliant concept. And obviously the concept of putting solar panels on a roof and selling back to the grid's not a new one, but it's just been plagued by inefficiencies and power industries not really helping the process along, unfortunately. But the consumer as well.
In some cases, I would say.
In some cases, absolutely. What my question is we have a general population out there who likes the idea, right? But how do we get people who are kind of hesitant about using blockchain technology, using cryptocurrencies to actually come on board with Power Ledger?
Sure. So electricity markets are a bit different from, say, Uber, where anyone can just get on the road and drive. Markets are generally regulated, and so what that means is that they need to go through a retailer. And so we partner with retailers who want to offer their customers the ability to trade peer-to-peer. And we just announced a new partnership yesterday with a retailer on the east coast of Australia called POWR Club, who are passing on 100% of the spot price to their customers with battery dispatching into the peak. Yeah, and so customers don't really interact with the blockchain. It's like, where you see your laptop, Intel inside. What they know is that they connect to the system, and that as they dispatch electricity, they receive credits in their wallet that they can offset against their electricity bill or convert back into dollars into their bank account. And so it's really just like phone minutes for electricity, and a normal website, portal that they would use like any other.
And so that's basically all the units are being tracked on the blockchain.
Yeah, and 1 unit or 1 cent in the case of Australia is represented by 1 spark, which is a cryptographic token, but it's just like phone minutes for electricity. And in Japan, 1 spark is 1 yen, so it's pegged to the lowest denomination in a particular currency. So the user experience is very simple for consumers and prosumers. So consumers are those that don't have solar or batteries, and prosumers are those that do have solar or solar and batteries, or just batteries perhaps.
Yep.
We're seeing a lot of innovative retailers that want to empower their customers to be able to do this. And we've just signed up another retailer on the national electricity market. We haven't announced that yet, but we will do soon. And there's a lot of interest I think the kind of tier 2 retailers that have sort of big growth aspirations recognise that empowering their customers is the way to grow their customer base.
And is that what we're looking at with POWR Club? I'm not familiar with the POWR company. Are they kind of that tier 2 retailer where they're kind of a challenger, challenging the big guys, and they're trying to find ways to get people to come to them, and by giving back 100% of the spot price? I mean, that's pretty competitive.
Correct. Yes. So they've recently formed. They've been around for a few years, I think, and they've just won, I think, most customer friendly retailer of the year. And they're really wanting, they see that the way the market is heading is distributed, and then the more they can leverage their customers to supply electricity to them, the less that they need to go and purchase that from other sources in the spot market or the wholesale market.
Nice. Now, one thing that Power Ledger does on kind of, I guess, a bigger vision is working with the idea of really a lot of different aspects of renewable energy and energy distribution. So we're going to talk about something you got going on with electric cars here in a few minutes. But I want to actually ask you as well about the idea of smart cities, because obviously what you have going with Power Club, the east coast of Australia is where all the big cities are, except for Perth, out there across the outback. But so how is all of this fitting into the idea of smart cities and the future of cities?
Well, around 2022, it's predicted that the price of electric vehicles will be the same as a petrol car. And that's expected to be point of lift-off for sales. And that will add 20% more demand to our electricity systems in most cities. And then if you add to that commercial vehicles, that will add another 20%. And so you're going to see actually stronger demand for electricity as a result of electric vehicles, and the demand profile will be at different times of the day to what is currently known as the peaks. And through things like Internet of Things and coordinated recharging and dispatch, large items that use a large amount of electricity, so things like air conditioners and dryers and swimming pool pumps and electric vehicles, I think can be coordinated in the times that they recharge. But I think that this means that there are big opportunities for installation of more generation capacity of things like wind and solar. And so I think that is going to underpin more demand for distributed sources of energy, and also more centralised sources of energy like large-scale solar and large-scale wind. And at the moment, the market's about as geared up to buy electricity from smaller generators as a supermarket is to buy homegrown tomatoes. But we've seen the regulator in Australia, the Australian Electricity Market Commission, has one of its priority areas be digitalisation of electricity, and also really empowering consumers. And I think our interpretation of that had previously been empowering consumers where it suits incumbent players, but I think the interpretation of the Commission more recently has been at large. And I think that's very exciting, because it will be a more bona fide, notwithstanding the fact it is a regulated market, I think it will become a more bona fide market.
It's very exciting, and I think about the energy industry as it is right now, and it's so ready for disruption. So it's so inefficient. It's so inefficient the way that we create energy right now. We have big centralized power factories, and they just blast out energy, all day long. And it's a crazy system. We don't have time to get into the finer elements of how broken the current energy system is, but it's so exciting to see all the disruption going on with that, and new systems being built, and that people want those new systems, not just the consumers, but the energy retailers want those new systems, local governments want those systems, cities want those systems, and national governments also want those systems. And let's move on now to talking about Malaysia, because this is a super exciting partnership that's just happened. So you have basically peninsular Malaysia. There's two parts of Malaysia, the peninsula and the northern half of the island of Borneo. But peninsular Malaysia has a single energy retailer, TNB, which has around, 9 million customers or so, which is massive. So what's going on over there?
Well, the government has very big ambitions. Currently, they have about 1.5 gigawatts of renewables in their system, but they intend to grow that to 6.5 gigawatts by 2025. And they've got about 6 different initiatives targeted around doing that. And in the case of the project we have with CEDA, government agency, it's really facilitating peer-to-peer trading between consumers and commercial users, because the commercial users' rates are much higher. And so households are being encouraged to put in solar and sell it to the commercial users and attract, a good payback. And so they see that as one of the potential ways to accelerate the transition from 1.5 gigawatts to 6.5 gigawatts of renewables.
Wow. That's a big upgrade, and that's over the next 5 years. We're almost at 2020 now. And so you can really see that needs a technological, solution to help move that along. And that's obviously really, really big for Power Ledger that you're, involved with that.
Yeah, we're super excited. I think across the ASEAN region, you're seeing a lot of really interesting things happen. At the moment, say Singapore's only got 200 megawatts of renewables and they want to grow to 1.5 gigawatts. And they do have some connectivity electricity-wise between other countries. And so I think you could start to see more interconnections and trading of electricity, and particularly in places like Singapore where you've got a lot of density, and so you're not necessarily going to be able to generate it all on site on the island.
That's right. Small place, but they've got lots of big neighbors. So now, that's not the only place you're working in Southeast Asia. You've also been working a lot in Thailand. So give us some updates on what's been happening in Thailand with Power Ledger.
Sure. So we have a partnership with BCPG, who have about 500 megawatts of renewables in their portfolio. And we have a peer-to-peer trading project there in Bangkok called the T77 Precinct. And it's just under 1 megawatt across 6 commercial buildings. And it's actually the largest commercial peer-to-peer project in the world. There's a few hundred more kilowatts being added to that now, but there are a number of other projects that we're developing with BCPG. There's one for 4 megawatts of installed capacity just outside of Bangkok, and a project in Chiang Mai University involving 12 megawatts of installed capacity. And they have a big ambition over the next 5 years to get to about 200 megawatts of distributed renewables in partnership with the Thai government. So we're really excited to see what is happening in Thailand, and the idea that the leapfrogging to the energy system of tomorrow might happen in places like Thailand faster than in developed countries.
Absolutely. They're still building in some of these places their capacities, right? They're not as set in like a lot of the other countries might be, but it's super exciting because you realize that these pilot projects, and we can already see what's happened from, Bangkok, we've moved out to other cities and stuff like that. They see, well, that's working, that's saving them money, that's cool, we want to be part of that. So these pilot projects, and there's a lot of them here. We're only like halfway through the list. It's crazy how much you guys have been up to recently. So let's move on now to talk about Japan, because there's two very important things I want to talk about with Japan in particular. And let's start off with kind of looking back a little bit. So you had you're working with KEPCO, which is I think is the second largest energy producer in Japan?
It's the largest privately owned utility in Japan.
There you go. So that's pretty big. Only the largest one. So can you tell us what the cooperation was like with them?
Sure. So we worked with them supporting the creation of a virtual power plant in Osaka in their laboratory. And that trial just completed successfully a few months ago. And we have just signed a contract, and we're about to make an announcement around rec trading project with KEPCO in Japan. So I think that more details will be coming out around that in the next few weeks.
Very, very cool. So it's good to see you're still working with them as well. And now you've also just announced energy trading trial in Japan's Kanto region.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. So that's partnering with Sharing Energy and a very large energy utility. And this is peer-to-peer trading of electricity. So Sharing Energy have partnered with a retailer from like a scale perspective. And we see a lot of exciting things going on in the Japan market because the feed-in tariff has just expired. And so customers are no longer receiving that. And the utilities are looking at different ways to start to transact the electricity into the market. So it's kind of driving innovation. And we think that there are big opportunities for facilitating more renewables to come online, the monetization of existing generation capacity, and also the trading of RECs. So I mentioned, for example, in Singapore, they've only got 200 megawatts of solar. There's a demand for far more, particularly from what's called RE100 companies, Renewable Energy 100 companies. That's multinationals that have pledged to buy their energy from renewable sources. So what they can do instead is purchase a REC. One REC is 1 megawatt hour of renewables, and Japan and places like Thailand are potential sources. So the RECs, the sale of the RECs can also underpin new generation capacity coming online in one country where the value of the renewables is actually purchased in another.
Pretty cool stuff. Now we're gonna switch continents now, and let's talk about what's been going on in the United States, because you've had quite a few projects and partnerships over there as well. So can you tell us about Clearway Energy? So they're currently rolling out blockchain powered renewable energy certificates. So can you tell us a little bit about your working with them?
Sure. So Clearway are a asset owner of more than 6 gigawatts of renewables. They're listed on the NASDAQ. So they're a big player in the RECs market. About $3 billion worth of RECs are issued in the US each year across 34 states. And I think Clearway are active in like 25 or 28 of those. Trading the RECs, the costs associated with reconciling and settling the trades is a lot. It could be 15 or 20% perhaps of the total cost when you factor in middle and back office costs.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, the counterparties, it's quite opaque. They don't even know the full extent of it. But the idea is that using the blockchain, the counterparties can trade and settle with each other live. So trading and settlement is one and the same thing on the blockchain. And so you can drive a lot of efficiencies from a middle and back office perspective. And so we're going live, firstly with a registry at the end of this month for some RECs. And then at the beginning of next year, trading. I think we've got compliance REC trading and a voluntary project planned for the first quarter of next year. And we've already received strong interest from other market participants around joining the platform to see if it drives the efficiencies that are expected.
Pretty cool. It's obviously, you'll have some better numbers for us after you've actually been rolling through this, but I can imagine that if that's how bad it is right now, it's not going to be that hard to make some real improvements upon a pretty broken system. Now, that's not the only partner you have, though, in the United States right now. You're also working with us, I guess, is it some guys in Silicon Valley with that's where we're talking about the monetization of the electric vehicle charging?
Yeah, so we had a project with Silicon Valley POWR, Tria, which is successfully completed, and we announced that a few months ago, and we're now in commercial negotiations with them around adding more assets to the platform. But the trial was connecting to the second largest electric vehicle charging station in California, and that was powered by solar and to charge EVs. And they were eligible for a particular carbon credit called the LCFS, the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. But the process by which you get the credits issued is quite time consuming, and what we have done is automated that on our platform. And local municipalities and other asset owners that are eligible for the credits have the ability to receive them in a more efficient fashion using our platform. And so we're really delighted to successfully complete that project in the same way we did with KEPCO. And now we're looking at bigger projects and more commercial installations.
Very, very cool. Now, I feel like I'm missing something else in the United States that
American
you're doing.
PowerNet.
There we go.
So they're a supplier of energy, and they have solar on their head office roof. And what they weren't using was just spilling into the network, and they weren't getting anything for it. And they're now trading it with their neighbours, and they're purchasing it at 11% cheaper rate than the grid price.
Nice.
And so American PowerNet are receiving income that they wouldn't otherwise have gotten, and the neighbours are purchasing renewable energy at a cheaper price. And so that project's going very well, and we're just discussing adding more users to the platform. That's
amazing. Just if you go to someone and say, hey, would you like to save 11% on your electricity? They go, yeah, sure. Sign me up.
No.
Exactly, right? And now I don't think there's quite as many projects. I mean, there's a lot in Asia and the States and all and stuff. And of course, we're going to get to Australia in a second. But you do have one in Austria. So can you tell us a little bit? You've partnered up with a subsidiary of one of Austria's top 5 energy utilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that partnership?
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with the amount you know, so I just wanted to acknowledge that quickly, right?
I've just been trolling through your Twitter, basically.
Yeah, so it's called, the retailer is called Energy Steermark, and the subsidiary is eNext. And it's a small project to start off with. There's 5 prosumers and 5 consumers, so 10 in total, demonstrating how the technology integrates into their market and regulatory system. But they have aspirations to obviously roll that out to more customers and also interconnect other retailers within the Austrian market. And we also have just got a project signed in France as well. And we'll be able to provide more details on that in December.
Very, very cool. This is one of the things that when I was, looking around for what we're going to talk about during our chat today, I was going through, I was looking like, oh my gosh, you have been super, super busy. Like there's just, and there's more we're not even going to get to today, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're certainly very dedicated. I think that, we're very passionate about the work that we're doing, and we can see the appetite for doing things differently. And, it's in some ways, it's, we've done so much, but it's frustrating because, you want to be, obviously further along. But we can see the Glidepath coming out now. Like the project in France, I think will get to a lot of scale very quickly. There's very significant potential for scale from the virtual power plant we announced yesterday on the national electricity market. Thailand has big aspirations for scale, the REC market in the US. So you can start to see the glide path emerging for users and megawatts onto the platform.
Very cool. Now, we've talked a lot about the rest of the world. I want to bring it back to talking a little bit about Australia. I know we've mentioned it briefly earlier, but I did want to get some updates from the Fremantle. So Fremantle, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a town on the southern side of Perth there. In the southern side of Perth, right?
No, it's on the western coast of Perth.
There you
Oh,
go.
it is kind of south. You are right.
Southwesty. Okay, it's over. It's next to Perth, guys. So anyway, you've been running a trial over there for a while, so you can tell us about how that's been going, what the reception's been like from the people who have been using it, and is that project continuing? Is it going to expand into the future?
Yes. So we've got a few projects in Fremantle, but I think the one you're talking about is the peer-to-peer trading across the grid, and that project was due to go. To finish in May of this year, but the decision was made by the project parties to extend it, which is obviously really exciting. Great. And it's now going until January, and we've added new participants on, I think 40 in total. And the participants are reporting that they're feeling really empowered, and I think it's going to, we're still collecting data from the new cohort. They've only been trading for 5 weeks now, so. But I think that it's going to provide really valuable insights as to what extent peer-to-peer trading changes user behaviour, leaves customers more predisposed to stay with a particular retailer, influences their decision to install a battery. And so really looking at how does this kind of market mechanism actually start to change the physical energy system.
That it's so important to actually get that real world, what are people literally doing with this? How are they actually using it? And to get that feedback, to get that data, and because it's going to help you grow so much more in the future when well, this is what people want. This is what how they're using it, why they're using it, when they're using it. That stuff's really important. You can't get that just by, not doing it.
You can't get that from speculating.
That's right. That's right. Now, it's not just the big cities in Australia. I think it's really awesome that Power Ledger has been working as well, doing a trial of peer-to-peer energy trading out in some of the more rural areas of Western Australia. So that's really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Sure. So we have a project in a regional town of Western Australia called Wongan Hills, and it involves the Shire or the council and 10 commercial users of energy, some of which have solar and some don't. And so they're trading. It went live about 6 weeks ago, and I could probably send you some footage of that on the news. If you'd like. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really exciting. They're feeling very empowered, and they can see, there's a potential for us to generate a lot of our energy in our own town and use the platform to facilitate the trading and settlement between the counterparties.
Nice. I think it's especially for these rural regions. I feel like it's even, I don't know, to an extent even more important because the cities they'll get taken care of if there's some kind of natural event or something. But the guys out in the outback, I mean, if something happens, they're already quite self reliant out in these areas. But this just helps them be more self reliant and more efficient with what they're doing.
Well, I mean, the point you make is important because the energy system of tomorrow will be what's the most efficient way to deliver electricity in a particular market. And in regional towns, it may be microgrids that have a transactive layer that sits on top of them. Whereas in cities, you're more likely to have the grid at large. Mm-hmm. And I think that, although there's a lot of distributed renewables, the cost of transmission's coming down as well. And so batteries versus transmission are going to play like a competing role in a sense. So, for example, in Perth, we're 2 or 3 hours behind the east coast of Australia. And so we could generate solar, theoretically speaking, and transmit that over to Sydney and Melbourne when they need it at night, if we had the transmission connectivity. So the question will be, is it cheaper to build peaking capacity there or transmission? And so I think the energy system of tomorrow will make decisions based on what's the most efficient way to deliver electricity to a particular market.
It's very, very exciting to see how this technology is developing, and when you realize the efficiencies that'll be gained. It's not just about saving money for people. That's also very, very cool. Everybody likes saving money, right? And companies like making money because they're otherwise not, using these resources. But also, importantly, we're really optimizing our use of resources globally. Instead of having one place just burning giant amounts of coal all day, you have energy when you need it from infinite sources, from the sun and the wind and the water and all that other stuff too. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I think on that point, moving electricity to new places is one thing, but also low-cost renewables, I think, could actually underpin new industries. So, for example, in Australia, the cost of renewables is much cheaper than in other places. And so it could be used, for example, to process iron ore or alumina where, say, for example, we have a lot of alumina here, but high cost of coal production. And so the smelters ended up on the east coast of Australia where there's a lot of coal that is super polluting but super cheap. But it was, that's a big factor of input for the production of alumina. With renewables becoming cheaper and cheaper, and the cost curves have come down so much faster, and the cost of capital being zero, I think that investment decisions will now be made differently for new assets. And, where energy is the main input cost for manufacturing of things like iron ore, steel, from iron ore and alumina from bauxite, you might start to see energy systems changing dramatically where large amounts of generation capacity are installed in places like, northwestern Australia to underpin new industries. And so I think it could actually start to change the shape of the kind of sectoral components in an economy as well.
Wow. Very interesting stuff. Well, for anybody who wants more information about what Power Ledger is doing, guys, check down the description. There's going to be some links to the Power Ledger website and the Twitter and all that fun stuff, and share some other links with you as well. So check down below. Jemma, thank you so much for coming on today and telling us some updates about what Power Ledger's been up to. I'm super excited to see you've, not been sleeping at the wheel, been up to so much. It's super impressive. So thank you for coming on and giving everyone the real quick rundown of what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Crypto Lark.